This conference will now be recorded.
Anybody see Mr. Sullins? The King George County Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024 will now be called at 5:32.
The King George County Board of Directors for the Service Authority is now called to order also.
Alrighty, so we will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. Do the invocation first. Dear Lord, as we come upon this Christmas season, bring glory to you in everything we do. We ask that climate in this country slow down a little bit, help us work together as a nation, as a county, as a state. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the republic. Alrighty, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, there is. Can we move Ms. Lori Gump up to the Constitutional Officer report?
Seeing no dissent, we will move Ms. Gump up to the Constitutional Officer report.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Is there any other amendments, Mr. Smollett? Alrighty. All right, public comment. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so it can be properly included in the public record. First, we have Reverend Davis. Come forth and you shall be heard.
Thank you. I guess we all know it's December. I'm Reverend Davis. I voted in Dahlgren District. I just stopped by today to tell you Merry Christmas and hope that it will be a wonderful time for you. I'll say something may surprise you, and that is there's nothing wrong with a one world government. It's just who is in charge that's the problem. And that's why the Bible says the Lord Jesus Christ is going to be in charge, because he's the only one who can't be corrupted. So the Bible says in Isaiah 3,000 years ago, by inspiration of God, and the infallible word of God was written but here by Isaiah, and this is what he says about the millennial reign is yet ahead of us. He says, unto us a child is born. That's taken place. Hallelujah. The Bible says, unto us a son is given, also taking place. But then there is the future of this prophecy. And the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful. Right now his name is blasphemed, but his name will be called Wonderful. Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father. That Jesus didn't begin in Bethlehem. He always has been. He's everlasting. He's eternal. He come to earth to take care of our need, which is a sin need. And so the Bible says that the Prince of Peace, of the increase of his government and peace, then shall be no end upon the throne of David, that is his royal lineage, King David. His racial lineage, of course, is Abraham. And upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever and ever. The zeal of the Lord will perform this. And so in this season, as we celebrate the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, birthed in Bethlehem, we want to just, of course, thank each of you for what you're doing. The Lord, over the years, God has given every generation, every dispensation, every opportunity to operate government in his way. But you know what's happened. We want God out, and man hates God and kicks God out of government. but to give a man every opportunity to run government his way. And we have failed, and we have failed pretty miserably over the years, needless to say. I do appreciate the job y'all are trying to do, and I appreciate what you're doing for our county, and that you're interested in King George and this county. So I appreciate you, and I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. But one day, there'll be no more board meetings. Aren't you thankful? Amen.
Amen.
God bless you. Amen.
Excuse me. This level?
Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. I want to thank you for your service to the community, with a special thanks to whoever had the idea to put the ban referendum for the new school building to the people of King George. I know that you are very happy with the results, but I'm telling you tonight that the people who have lived here for a long time are not happy. With all this spending, we would like for you to be more transparent and tell the people how much the debt with the county and the service authority really is. You have not even finished the new courthouse. You're not even paying for it. I know that you have been in office for only a year, but you seem to be doing okay. I want to remind you that you run keeping spending down and reducing the debt. That's what you did wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Level. Dr. Boyd?
Good evening, Jesse Boyd, Superintendent, King George County Schools. Happy holiday, board. Merry Christmas. I had the opportunity of having a very good meeting yesterday with Mr. Sullins, and a lot of good information came out of that. I think one of the most positive things was just the opportunity to sit down and talk. And I can tell you, on behalf of the school board and everyone else, we would love to continue that dialogue as we move forward with many of these big projects. The thing I wanted to mention tonight is I know this board charged myself really last March when we were having budget conversations to come back to this board and talk about the things that weren't met in the budget and talk about the fund balance. I want you to know that that's been on the forefront of our mind. We're still working diligently to get those things done. I know on your end, we're still waiting for the audit to be complete. For us, as soon as we get final notification that that audit's complete, I have everything in order so that we can come and continue that conversation. So I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't something that was seen to be forgotten. Also, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I've had conversations with many of the school board members, and we're very interested in and willing to walk lockstep with you guys on any next steps that need to be taken or considered with following the referendum. So anything that we can do to be part of that conversation, we're certainly open and willing to participate in. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Mr. Bob Beard? Good to see you, Mr. Beard.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope I haven't offended anybody by using the terms I have. In today's world, people are so sensitive about language, how people are addressed. I want to say that we're in a unique situation here. We're in an older community with a lot of old people, with a lot of people from the farm. There are a lot of people moving in from out of this area with different ways of speaking, different languages, different understanding. We all need to be understanding of each other and recognize we're trying to work together as one community. In our history here in King George and Northern Neck, I find our society has evolved based on 4 words: a close community, religion, education, and work. That's common to all our residents here in the Northern Neck. As I said, our community is unique. We're an old community. It used to be agrarian. The times have changed. Number of businesses are moving in. People are moving in from the northern part of Virginia, Maryland, D.C., and across the country. We all need to understand we're not going to maintain things the way they are. Things are going to change. We're going to be in transition. And we need to position our county to best deal with the changes and the growth. That said, such change has not been easy, nor will it be easy for we the citizens, and certainly on the elected officials such as yourself, who we have chosen to represent our interests. Sometimes our officials are easily able to identify and act in accordance with our clear direction. In other cases, our officials have to take the lead, sometimes taking immediate action. In other cases, putting out trial balloons which result in obtaining positive or negative input. Such is the case of the mission and vision statement that was advanced in the last Board of Supervisors meeting. That's up to the action in this meeting. I must commend Mr. Stroud for running this proposal up the flagpole. I think that's certainly grounds for discussion. However, I would contend that it needs further discussion. For myself, I would suggest that at the least it needs to be revised to more clearly reflect that King George is not a purely rural county, but as is stated in the county's website, it is indeed a county in transition. Quoting from our website, King George County is transitioning rural county steeped in history that places a high priority on quality of life through protection of natural, cultural, and historical resources, as well as being a regional leader in proactive and progressive planning, development, and government services. It's your charge, I believe, to address all of those things and to remember that we're in transition. You have a big job in front of you, and we're here to support you and thank you for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Mike, is that Rutherford? Rutherford? I do, sir, Mr. Rutherford. Come forth and you shall be heard.
Well, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to speak about the assessments. Now that I'm disabled and I've realized a few things, I was on the program, but because we don't have any housing for the younger people, my kids moved in with grandkids, so it put me over the limit. So I'm dependent on them staying in my house, which I love them to death, but I think we all know that. They need to grow on, but they can't grow on. They don't have a home, and the infrastructure in this county, there is none. I've been here over 20 something years, and now that Dahlgren's got Walmart and all that, well, that's great. And the other thing is, since I got a little bit of time, I'm not a public speaker, okay? I got an idea about if you need to bring in a revenue, but you need to bring it in when you have the infrastructure. You don't have it. I'm an electrician. I tell you, you don't have it. You know it. But you could get with like the VA administration and have a rehabilitation center and get a grant from the government. You're in between two military bases. You're in between two hospitals. You could put it anywhere in the county, and you could get revenue by taking care of the vets. I don't know if y'all, kind of understand that concept, but I mean, grants help. And with the school board, I was talking to Mr. Boyd here, you could go and teach our kids the basics of low tech, like the way I came up. And it's to be an elective in high school, but then you could sub it out and charge rent or whatever to various organizations, whether or not it's a union or non-union. I'm union, but you can bring in revenue that way. There's all kinds of ways to come up with the revenue, but you don't have the infrastructure. So the assessments are kind of unfair because I know I'm touching on a couple of different points, but for people like me, I'd like to know if my Social Security is going to cover my mortgage and not be dependent on my kids. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. What district was yours? Your district?
Oh, Madison.
Madison?
Mr. Stroud.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Reverend Shaw? Time's up.
James Shaw, James Monroe District, columnist, Northern Next Sentinel, citizen journalist, kgmedia.top, not speaking in my capacity as EDA member. New hat, MCA, microscopic critter advocate. Captain James Tiberius Kirk of Riverside, Iowa fame, once shared with the world the task given to him and his crew of the Starship Enterprise to boldly go where no man has gone before. So this evening's observation moves from the stars to something a bit more grounded, the Earth. This trip will take us to the hidden microscopic world of biological processes that proceed tirelessly and continuously in the rich soil, sea, and air all around us. From the trillions of bacteria that inhabit your intricately designed by God digestive system, a system that is providing the daily necessary enzymes for proper and efficient digestion, to the zillions of microscopic critters that inhabit the soil as one drives in the right-hand lane on Route 3, except to pass, on the way to the big city. Of course, one drives near the speed limit to avoid the radar of Sheriff Giles and Decatur's deputies. The expansive fields are viewed by various people in various ways. Now there's big agriculture, and it sees there a great opportunity, and they are in the process of quietly, most people don't know this, developing and patenting and keeping quite secret many microscopic organisms to aid crops in producing increased yields. The challenge is the genetic manipulation part to make this happen. And so my advice, scientist and advocate for the already present critters, is for the board, as they may have opportunity to address this in the future, approach these GMO critter imports with great caution. We love our ag land and want to continue to be good stewards of it, improving it, not damaging it, for future generations. May God bless the King George Renaissance.
Thank you, Reverend Shaw. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to come forth? Seeing none, is there anyone online?
There are two individuals online. They have not indicated they wanted to speak.
Has anyone received any written correspondence? Mr. Rollins?
Thanks, sir. I got an email from Mr. Adam Simonoff, Dahlgren District, and he asked me to share these questions and some responses with y'all publicly. One question is, how's the King George Board of Supervisors going to enforce public property rights to enjoy Dahlgren Wayside Park again? This has been kind of an ongoing thing for a little over a year now, and we actually had some updates today. Mr. Bill from VDOT said that they've actually turned that property back over to King George. Reaching out to Mr. Clark, he said, well, they've turned everything over except for a portion, a parcel that actually has the access road on it. And so he doesn't feel comfortable inviting people back onto the park without having full permission to use a VDOT road that hasn't been turned over to us yet. So still trying to iron that one out. How does the King George Board of Supervisors plan to have sufficient funds to repay the school board referendum? I told him that was a fairly complex question, probably more than just a single email and probably more than a 3-minute response, but offered to meet with him for breakfast. But the gist of it, I don't think it's going to cost a full $57 million. We've been told at a town hall meeting before the election that there's probably going to be some money left from the courthouse bond, also some money left over from the fire station bond. And Mr. Smolnick has a big checkbook. He's just going to write a huge check for us, and we're going to be all good to go. But seriously, there are some things that we have in the works, and we are going to be working with the school board to figure out how to plan that out. One of the things he didn't ask about, but in the meeting with Dr. Boyd and the couple school board folks yesterday, my concern has been why are we why are we building an elementary school when our high school is at capacity and our middle school is nearly at capacity too? Dr. Board explained that the plan is by opening that new school, they can redistrict some of the stuff. It will have capacity, that'll create capacity in each one of the elementary schools. Then they can pull the sixth graders out of the middle school and put them back in elementary school where they're supposed to be. That'll create some capacity in the middle school. Then they can pull the ninth graders out of the high school, put them in the middle school. So now you've got 7th, 8th, and 9th. So you've got a junior high and you've got a high school. Now all the schools have a little bit of capacity left over. So the trickle down or trickle up, however you want to look at it, it actually kind of makes sense once I heard that. So
Mr. Sullins, could you read his comment, and then in your comment, you could answer how you see fit?
they kind of go together, but
Just read them out.
all right. So House King George Board of Supervisors, working with the Virginia State Senator Stewart to change VDOT and how the funding to address uniform quality in street surface paving and road safety at the Governor Nice Bridge. When will the Ralph Bunche High School building be open to the public as a civil rights museum joined by the King George Historical Society? How is the King George Board of Supervisors incentivizing business and growth in the county to fill commercial real estate vacancies? How is the King George Board of Supervisors planning to implement park and ride lots to alleviate rush hour road congestion to and from the Navy base? What are the King George Board of Supervisors plans to manage county growth to balance the need for traffic, farms, business, and housing? And what is the King George Board of Supervisors plan to publish biweekly highlights of its legislative plans and accomplishments since our local newspapers will not do it? I'll hit some highlights on that. So right now we don't have we've not been working with the Comrail. I don't know of any plan to establish a park and ride thing with the base, especially with so many people living close by. But it's something we can bring up with the Comrail committee. Mr. Stroud and I are both in that. Incentivizing businesses, we're looking at different forms of tax breaks to try to bring in small businesses, either tax breaks or milestone-based incentives to help them succeed and then provide rebates after the fact. The road paving across the country, different streets based on how much use they get. That depends on what kind of materials used on that. So, and we're not going to change everything so that everything in King George is paved the way 3 would be. That's just cost prohibitive. And he understood that when I went back to him. His other concern though is having safer access to Barnes Field and Wayside Park. So that's something we can talk about at a later date. I think that's the bulk of this for now. So if y'all want to reach out to me after the fact, email or in person, whatever, I'll stick around and we can go back and wrap that up.
Alrighty. Thank you. The folks online, anybody want online? Alrighty. We will close public comment. Reports to the members of the board. Do you have any more report, Mr. Sullins?
Of course I do. Thank you.
All right, you used up most of your time already.
It's not my time.
Mr.
That was
Chair.
Mr. Seminoff's time.
One of them did want to speak.
All right, who's that, please?
Ryan McGill.
Yes, sir. And what is his district?
Has not said. If you could unmute your mic, now would be the time to ask your questions.
Good evening, thank you. I was curious on the agenda item regarding a study to be conducted on the fire and rescue. I was curious what the aims of this study is and if it's being taxpayer funded. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is that the end of it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, public comments closed. Mr. Sullins, continue with your report, please.
Thank you, sir. So yeah, I got to meet with a developer for the Arnold's Corner project, along with Mr. Stroud. That's the one where they're looking at put townhouses behind the sheets. I've heard a bunch of comments. This has got to be a done deal, yada yada. It's not a done deal. That's the first time we heard about it was I think last Monday. So there's a lot of work to be done on that before we agree to anything, and they're going to have to ask for special exceptions. So it's not going to just get railroaded in there. It's not a done deal, so don't worry yet. Met with a developer for Walnut Hill townhouses on Owens Road. Also not a done deal. More meetings, more discussions needed to make that happen. Had the George Washington Regional Commission meeting along with Ms. Bender. That's always fun. Met with a couple members of the school board. Dr. Boyd kind of mentioned that earlier, so I won't go into detail about it. Addressed a few handful of emails with residents across the last 2 weeks, and I want to appreciate everybody for staying involved and reaching out either over the phone or email or whatever. And then finally, I'd like to nominate Mr. Ian Fox for another term on the Planning Commission. His term ends on the 31st.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. All right. Thank you, sir. Is that the end of your report, sir? All righty. Mr. Lee, sir?
I have nothing for the group this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis?
Mine's gonna be really short. Whatever the thing is that's going around, I probably got it. So if I don't shake your hand or talk to you tonight, that'd be why. So I'm just gonna save my voice, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Stroud?
Thanks, sir. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and speaking tonight. We had a lot of speakers. I'm not going to talk to them all, but I would like to address Mr. Baird's comments regarding the vision and mission statement and about King George being in transition, because King George is a transition. Okay, it's a transitional county. Anybody going from the Northern Neck to spend their money in Fredericksburg or Stafford or Spotsylvania come through King George. There's probably thousands of cars from Maryland every day that transition through King George. I mean, both ways. So it is a transitional county. The constituents, I speak to a number of them whenever I'm out and about. And everybody I talked to said they moved here to get away from that, to get away from Northern Virginia, and to get away from that city life and live in a more rural environment. So they didn't move here to be like, or to be in Stafford or be in those areas. They probably would have stayed where they were. If you would like to come, and I say you, but if somebody would like to come, you would like to come drive my tractor down Route 3 between properties, it's very obvious. And you're taking your life in your hand, because those people transitioning through King George aren't King George residents and are probably not off in Northern Neck, because they don't recognize or pay attention to somebody driving a tractor around here. And there's a lot of rural property, there's a lot of farms, and there's ranches. And, you know, whenever we move from one property to the next, we do that on the road. We have flashers on, we have safety lights, but these cars run up on you, and it's hazardous. It's hazardous for them as well. But, you know, we are, and still, unless you want to tell everybody that owns these farms and that have tractors and do this, that they need to pack up and move somewhere else, then if you seek to retain that, which I think we do want to retain that environment here, not to mention with the fact that we need to eat, then we need to preserve that. And that's what we're trying to do. Reverend Shaw, I really don't know what you're talking about with the microorganisms, but I will say that there's a lot of issues and have been issues because with ranching, and I know farmers have the same problem, but we're trying to keep the weeds and stuff out of the hay fields. Then you spray herbicides and things like that. So I think what they're trying to do with some of those microorganisms is reduce the herbicides and pesticides and things that are being sprayed and going into the food, and trying to use a more natural way to take care of that without having to put the chemicals into the soil and then the runoff into the rivers and stuff. So I think that's what they're trying to do. And you know, I'll pay attention to it because I'm interested to it. Yes, sir. So I received an email from Mr. Michael Payne, and he lives in my district, and it was a good email, and it was addressing the Hoover Drive and the residents in Presidential Lakes, the old section of Presidential Lakes. turning out of Hoover Drive onto Route 3 and trying to turn left and head west. And it's a real challenge there with people that are, there's nowhere there. If you go through that light, or let's say you come out of the auto parts and you turn right, you have to do a U-turn to go back west, or you have to go through Sheets and get the light to turn left. But what happens if you're already past that light and you have to do a U-turn? So whenever people are trying to do a U-turn, especially in the mornings, whenever there's school traffic, it backs up, it's dangerous for those residents trying to turn out. There's a long line of traffic there. Now, the same thing exists if you're heading east and you're trying to go home, and you've got to cross that line of traffic and somebody's sitting in the turn lane. You can't see who's coming, oncoming traffic, you're turning into it. So there's a hazard there. And I bring this up because one, it's a challenge, and I sent it on to Mr. Beal, as did Mr. Sullins, and Mr. Beal at VDOT. He sent it on his engineers to look at to try to work a resolution. But I bring it up because the challenges that we have there, as if the county's growing or if we do something there, those challenges are only going to get bigger. So that's one intersection. I don't know how many people want more lights in King George. You know, if you go through Fredericksburg, and you know, I hate going there just simply because of the traffic. And this time of year it's really bad, but the traffic is crazy, and we don't have that here. And I you know, personally, I don't want to have 50 stoplights to get through King George at every intersection. So why is it relevant? Because as Mr. Supervisor Sullins mentioned, we did have a meeting with Westbrook about wanting to put the subdivision back there. That subdivision would go behind Sheets and Presidential Lakes, and they have nowhere to exit onto Route 3 except go through the Sheets or come out Hoover Drive, which we're already getting complaints. And this is just an email here. It's just, you know, unsolicited, you know, very good email with pictures articulating the problem, and the people that go through there in the morning know the problem. So these are problems that we're going to face, we're facing now, and we're going to continue to have to deal with these challenges. So if there's people that want to grow and grow and build, you know, we need the infrastructure, as was mentioned by Mike, who left. We know the infrastructure hasn't been put into place in this county years ago. Years ago, that should have been the first thing. Before the county spent money, this is my opinion, before the county spent money or borrowed money to build new buildings and things, we should have put the right stuff in the ground and put the infrastructure in place first. And that would have made the rest of the building better. Start down low and then work your way up. And now we're having to fix those problems. The Freelance Star posted yesterday, if you didn't see it, posted that Caroline State Park will expand a $500,000 grant they received from Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation for Lake Caledon. So it's going to add a 20% increase in the size of Caledon. That was posted by the Freelance Star. So that's all I've got to say, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bender?
Thank you very much. I'm going to piggyback on something Mr. Stroud says, talking about Hoover Drive and that area. I drive that every day, dropping off my daughter at the high school, and it is a challenge, especially to those people that live there. There's a couple of students that even ride their bike or walk across from the areas now going down towards St. Anthony's and Presidential Lakes and that other subdivision. So it is a challenge, and I wonder, especially with this one development that wants to come in and others, that maybe we need to do or have them do a traffic study from the post office all the way down to Route 205, especially after last year where we changed it to the trucks off of Route 206 pushing through 205. I was one of those people that said we're going to be pushing a lot of traffic, and we see it every day now. There's a lot more traffic that comes through this area, goes down 205. On 301, which I live off of, I see it sometimes when I have to pull out and it takes me 5 minutes to wait to get out because of all the through traffic. And VDOT has been pushing for years for 301 and even 3 to be a through traffic lane to get pressure off. And it kind of like, it needs to stop unless they give us some help to try to manage it, because I think of the senior citizens that live near me. I worry about them getting out of their roads, and especially the road that I lived on. There's been 4 accidents in the last year of residents trying to pull out and somebody going too fast or texting and driving or looking at their phone, and then somebody gets injured. So it's a concern that I have also. I did attend the GWRC meeting, attended the GEV open house, and I also contacted the contractor that's laying the conduit on Route 3. They couldn't really tell us who the person was that was paying for it, but they did mention that it would be in a lot of places in King George, and it was in anticipation of the future need of possibly fiber. Couldn't get a lot out of that, but I did call to find out what it was, and they are using the VDOT right away for the easements. And I did express concern to this company that they might want to tell their higher ups that in the past, especially Dominion, has sent courtesy letters to the residents of the easements. They've already granted the easements a long time ago to VDOT, but a courtesy letter might be nice so that we don't have residents like last meeting that called in concerned that their internet lines would be, cut or something. So there needs to be some courtesy letters, even using the VDOT right away, that yes, hey, we're here laying this, and just to let you know. So they did receive that, and they said they would put it up the chain of command to those that are authorizing doing the work. I visited family in Bucks County, Pennsylvania over the holidays, and my in-laws still read the newspaper. They love to read the Bucks County Courier-Times. And why I bring that up is they had an article about the school projects that they will be funding in Bucks County. It's a much larger county than King George, but I was striking. They had elementary schools, middle schools, and all of them, the costs were over $70 million. It's kind of eye-opening that in other localities that cost is a little bit higher than ours, but 57 million is not an out-of-the-park range, even though we would want to spend that kind of money, but that in other localities they're spending even more on school projects. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was I received an email today. I serve on the Coalition of High Growth Communities. I've been serving on that for a long time, and they sent us those that are on it an email today. And it says, last week, the Virginia Solar Energy and Energy Storage Siting Advisory Board considered a report by the staff of the Commission on Electric Utility Regulation and received a report regarding the process to the approval of solar energy facilities. After it became clear there was serious opposition, there was no formal vote on the report. In its draft form, it recommended the creation of a state process to override local land use decisions regarding solar energy projects. This would severely undermine local land use authority for this type of project. So this is something I've brought up before. I've been hearing the rumblings. I know Mr. Stewart in his role as a senator has heard that, but I just want to make that known. It's still rumbling about, and it's probably gonna, as Mr. Stewart, come up in the next legislative session, correct? So I just wanted to bring that to the public's attention. I have more on the service authority in that part of the program. Thank you.
All righty. My only comment this evening would be that, so there's no newspaper. So folks naturally will go to Facebook. King George Community Forum is one that's used a lot. I review that, and 90% of what is said on there is incorrect. So ask the people that know, look at the county website. All the information is there for your transparency. When people talk about transparency, there's nothing that we don't do that's not out here. What we handle in the back is personnel. So the closed sessions, as you'll hear them calling for them and what they're about specifically, there was only one in this last 11 months that's been about land. So be careful what you read, because it's not true. Some of the other supervisors received emails asking questions. So there's a lot of things going on, and we are talking about them. We're talking about them with the public, in front of the public, to the public, and with the public. There's no shenanigans like there was before. That's the end of my public comment. We, next we'll go to the Board of Supervisors consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the constitutional officer being left out.
Second.
Properly second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody
Aye.
aye? Oh, ready?
Roll call.
Oh, it's funds, okay. Mr. Davis, roll call.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud,
Aye.
Sullins.
Aye.
Ms. Bender.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Constitutional officers, Ms. Gump.
Good evening, Chairman Collins, honorable board members, Mr. Solmick, and Senator Mr. Stewart. I have always known you by Senator Stewart, so I asked Jackie, how do I address him tonight? So thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. I'm just going to keep it brief. I just wanted to give you a rundown on, what a year that we've had with the elections. So the year started actually in January with preparing for the presidential dual primary in March. Early voting started March 2nd, or excuse me, in January and ended March 2nd. After the March, January, we went straight into the June dual primary. Early voting starting in May and ending in June 15th. The November early voting started September 20th and ended November 2nd. Each election was 45 days. So a total of 135 days, 4.5 months of early voting. Our officers of election were trained 8 times and completed an evacuation exercise with each precinct. From January to November, we processed 6,982 applications. In-person voting ended on September 2nd, November 2nd, with 7,651 voters in person. 160 curbsides, which I have to give kudos to my deputy who did probably half of those because, as most of you know, I had foot surgery and couldn't walk very well. So every time I turned around, she was going out to do a curbside. And then we had 61 provisional votes. We went into Election Day with a 52% turnout already. We had 1,417 absentee ballots were mailed. On Election Day or before Election Day, 1,217 came back voted. We had 3 pre-processing sessions. Election Day turnout was 6,306, 71 curbsides, 237 provisional ballots. The total provisional ballots received early voting and Election Day was 298. And out of the 298, 237 of them were same-day registrations. Our total turnout for this election was 15,470. So that was early voting at 52% and Election Day at 30%, making our total turnout at 72%. On my projections, I projected between a 72 and 74% turnout. So it was 72% turnout. We had 40 ballots that were counted the Friday after the election, and these were the ones that were postmarked by Election Day, which makes the total of our absentee ballots 1,257 counted. On Wednesday, a week after the election, the electoral board met and had 298 provisional ballots that they needed to be considered. And out of those 298 provisional ballots, 258 of them were counted. November 20th, we conducted a risk limiting audit for the Senate race. Each locality was tasked with conducting this audit throughout the state. The RLA confirmed with over 97% confidence that Virginia voting machines accurately reported the winner for this contest. So it's been a busy year for our office, but I would be remiss in not mentioning some extremely important people
and key players in making the elections work. So if you will indulge me in just a minute, my electoral board, Rick Cruikshank, Phyllis Cook, and I have Jay Fazian here with me tonight. These three people have stood beside me, protected me, encouraged me, and believed in me. I look around the state and I am so extremely blessed to have this board. My staff, I couldn't do it without my staff. My right-hand person who has my back and who steps up to the plate and does anything that I ask her to do. And again, as you know, for a couple weeks, 3, 4, I don't know, weeks I was out, and she stood up and she did everything that needed to be done. And without her, I don't know what I would do. And we have a new person, if you have been in our office, Jessie Owens, and she has stepped up and has done a fabulous job in the short time that she's been there. So the officers of election, these people are the front line and the heart of running the elections. Without them, we would not be able to run a smooth and successful election. And I do have a few of them here tonight. I have Scott Pollock, who is our security officer down in Dahlgren. Raise your hand, Scott. I have Greg Triegel, who actually helped with all the pre-processing and did the cap. And this was his first time. And I guess you're coming back, right? And then Bob Baird, who is our security or our assistant chief in the courthouse precinct. So these are just a few that had come out. But again, their dedication to this process is amazing. We have about 57 officers of election that work. And out of those 57, I have to say that probably over half of them have been with me since I started. So again, King George is extremely blessed to have the officers of election that we do. Sheriff Giles and his team, I know that Sheriff Giles isn't here, but I have Sergeant Shriver, who was very instrumental in helping with our evacuation procedure. Each precinct had at least one deputy on site all day to be there in case any problem came up. And I cannot thank the deputies and his team enough for helping to ease the officers of election's mind, especially in the election that we were going into. Jimmy Pennington and his team. These guys came in and they come in for every election and they help load all of the voting machines and all of the things that need to go to the precincts and stay with us all day long until we're done. And on a day that school is in, we usually don't get done until about 7 o'clock and we start about 9. So they're with us throughout the whole day, driving the trailer around and loading and unloading the equipment for us. And they've done this for many of elections now. And they even go back the next day and pick up the things at Mary Washington University and take it back to the Dahlgren precinct for us. Steve Lynn, Sergeant Shriver, Jamel Carr, these three helped with our precinct evacuation in July. Each precinct was set up as if it was election day, and we did a huge evacuation procedure. They talked us through where we would need to go in case there was any emergency that would happen in the precincts. Chris Clark and Steve Lynn also made sure that we had the trailer packed on the day of the election with tents, tables, generators, in case we had to have an evacuation, we were ready to go. Now, I don't know who would have driven the truck because I can't drive a trailer. So I would have had to probably find somebody who would have driven that, but we had it ready out in the parking lot. But in closing, again, the election is not run by only one person. It's a group of dedicated citizens who love this county, who love this country, and want to make a difference, no matter how big or small the task may be. And I am so very thankful for each and every one that has helped, not only in this election, but in the past elections as well. And as most of you know, I'm not leaving yet, but that was my last presidential primary or presidential election. That was my 5th one, and I will have 20 years in. So I still have a couple elections under me, but I just, I want to thank you guys so much.
Any questions for Ms. Gump? Ms. Gump, I have a question. Mr. Stroud, you had a question?
Yes, sir. So if you could, ma'am, there's a lot of people that were asking during elections are concerned about the security of our voting machines and how they're not connected to the internet. And I know you explained it to me. Could you just take a minute and explain that so people understand how they work without being at risk?
So the election machines, the voting machines are not hooked up to any kind of internet whatsoever. So what it is, it's a standalone counting machine. So it's just a counting machine. It just counts the ballots. It doesn't do anything else except for when you put a ballot in, it counts it. It gives us a scan of the ballot, but it doesn't send the transmission anywhere in orbit, anywhere in space. And I mean, that's basically, it's just a counting machine.
Thank you, ma'am.
Scum, you mentioned the provisional ballots
Mhm.
and the ones that weren't valid.
Mhm.
What were the reasons they weren't valid?
So some of them would have been that they didn't mark, so the ones that weren't valid were the same day registrations. And a lot of those were addresses that weren't correct. A lot of them were, they forgot to mark that they were a felon. And so those did not get approved. The addresses that weren't correct were addresses that were basically, and I spoke to Senator Stewart about this because I feel like, and this is my opinion as a citizen, that the same day registration was abused for this election. In the sense that people used, like people at the base that were working there that may not have lived there but couldn't get home was using addresses on the base, and we knew that it wasn't a valid address, but they wanted to vote. So now what happens with those provisional ballots is they don't get put through a machine. They actually have to go in an envelope, and my board members have the authority to either approve them or not approve them. And so seeing that the addresses were the Aegis Training Center, and knowing that the Aegis Training Center does not house people, I worked there, and I actually called them to see if anything had changed since I worked there. You know, maybe, you know, you never know. And they told me no, that, you know, it still was a training center. So we knew that these addresses weren't correct. And so they didn't get approved, you know.
So the provisional ballots where the addresses are, so you had to verify every provisional ballot that is correct and valid?
298 we had to go through and research them.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
And the election, rest of the election folks.
Thank you.
I see them every election and they're out there working hard and
Yes, they are.
all day and night. Thank you. Are there any other constitutional officers? Seeing none. All right, Ms. Bender.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda for the Board of Directors?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
The motion, do I have a second? Motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? Since this is for money, I will do a roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis? Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Solons?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next up, we will move on to the agenda. First up, I would like to call Mr. Young up to give we did look into the value engineering, and before we come up with the bids, Mr. Young would like to give some background information and answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. On Thursday, November 21st, staff and RK&K met with contractors to engage in value engineering for projects associated with the Perkins Quarter wastewater plant decommissioning. Through conversations, we were able to identify savings without sacrificing quality or functionality of the end product. On the Hop Yard wastewater treatment plant and pump station upgrades project with American Contracting Environmental Services, we were able to save $373,967. On the Perkins Corner decommissioning water and wastewater interconnect projects with WC Spratt. We are able to save $340,000. In total, these value engineering efforts saved the Service Authority $713,967. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Questions? Thank you. Well, I don't know, Mr. Smolnik, do you have it in your report to introduce Mr. Young's new assistant?
I think this is a great opportunity. So thank you, Ms. Bender. So Chris, would you just want to come up to be recognized? So come up to the podium if you wouldn't mind. So this is Chris Conley. He is a King George resident, lives here with his family and 5 children. He joined the team right before Thanksgiving. Brings a very, very strong background of project management, both from the private side and as an owner's rep. So a lot of experience, and just lucky to have him here. Welcome him to the team, and you'll be seeing him. He's housed over in the engineering office with Mr. Young.
Thank you, Smolnik. Thank you. Welcome addition. Norm, before we move on to Mr. Wessel, would you like to discuss the monetary part? Because there is a difference, correct, still in the amount of the bid for?
We haven't received our report. We haven't received the final reports, which we'll receive in the morning. But I believe that there is amount on the VDH projects that the Service Authority will have to come up with. It was slightly over $1 million. I don't know, Bryce, do you have the actual number?
I do not have the actual number on me today.
But it was slightly over $1 million. If
I believe so.
All of the contingencies and everything is used, then we will have to cover the expenses beyond the $5 million grant that the VDH approved.
That is correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring that up first. Next up is concerning that, it will be SA 1202 and 1203, but we're going to start with the first one, 1202, which is the award of construction services agreement for Hop Yard wastewater treatment and pump station upgrades. Mr. Wessel.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm here to award the construction services agreement for Hop Yard, WWTP, and pump station upgrades. Procurement issued an IFB to solicit responses from qualified sources for a contractor to provide all services, labor, and materials necessary for the improvements of Hop Yard wastewater treatment plant and 6 pump stations in the courthouse area to reroute wastewater from the Perkins Corner sewer basin to the Hop Yard wastewater treatment plant. The scope includes Perkins Corner wastewater treatment plant decommissioning. 2 bids were received for this project. American Contracting and Environmental Services was the lowest bid for the project in the amount of $6,294,033. This project is funded through the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality ARPA fund.
Do you have any questions? Mr. Solms?
So just making sure I understood what Mr. Zabi said. The grant will cover roughly $5 million of this, but we've got to come up with another $1 million. Okay, got it.
Mr. Davis, you had stepped out. Do you have any questions on this one?
But Mr. Wasabi couldn't hear you for the tape.
The number that we were talking about that exceeded was the water projects from the ARPA funds through VDH. That's the side where there is a deficit.
Just so everybody's clear, this is for the decommissioning project for Perkins Corner that is part of our consent agreement with the Department of Environmental Quality, just so that everyone knows that. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make a motion that we authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designee to execute a construction services agreement with American Contracting and Environmental Services Incorporated in the amount of $6,294,033, subject to approval as to form by the county attorney.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. Stewart, this would be a roll call vote, correct? Right. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Solons?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next up was award of construction services agreement for Perkins Corner decommissioning water and force main interconnections.
All right, this would be to the award of a construction services agreement for Perkins Corner decommissioning water and force main interconnections. Procurement issued an IFB to solicit responses from qualified sources for a contractor to provide all services, labor, and materials necessary for the installation of the pipes that will convey the wastewater previously processed by the Perkins Corner wastewater treatment plant to the Hop Yard treatment plant and allow the Hop Yard and courthouse water systems to exchange water. 4 bids were received for this project. W.C. Spratt Construction Company was the lowest bid for the project. Project is funded through the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, ARPA Fund, and the Virginia Department of Health Fund.
Thank you. Any questions? Before I ask for a motion, I also want to bring up that I really appreciate all of your staff's work, that Ms. Cook and your staff, also finance, great job, Bryce, getting this all together real quickly. These are a lot of projects to do in a small amount of time. And I just want to thank you guys again for your hard work. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make a motion that we authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designee to execute a construction services agreement with W.C. Spratt in the amount of $8,451,985.00, subject to approval as to form by the county attorney.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Lee? Mr. Davis? Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you very much for all your work. Also, those out in the public, I know a lot of people ask, about bidders and how many people you get. And a lot of these projects, especially in water and sewer, not everybody is in the world of constructing force mains and decommissioning plants. So our options are kind of limited, but our staff looks over it very well. And these are people that do this kind of business and will help us be in compliance. So I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to move to my report now, and I'm going to mention a few things so we can move on. Mr. Savi, did you want to give any updates on your end? All right. One thing I want to bring up is we did have some meetings. We had one this morning, which we'll be bringing up in the closed session, this concerning the consent order, and also working with the PER for Oakland Park that is coming. We've had a draft, and in the draft, there was some questions and issues that will be coming on a future date. The price tag for decommissioning of Oakland Park, that's another park that wastewater plant that DEQ highly recommends being decommissioned. Right now, the engineering on it is about $24 million, with 14 million of it coming from the purple pipe. So that'll be coming in a future board meeting with more finite, the TRC, correct, Bryce? They have to update some information and some modeling so that it can come before the board. So I just want to bring that up. Oakland Park, another thing that came up in the last 2 weeks, we had a special piece of equipment. It's only, they're grinders. We have one at Perkins Corner, different make, and at Oakland Park being the 2 oldest plants, they are very specific. Mr. Eisenbeis, can you come up just for a second just to explain what the grinder is at the Oakland, no, I'm calling you on the spot, the Oakland Park?
All the wastewater that enters the plant actually comes through this grinder and grinds up all solids, rocks, anything that you can put down in the sewer, it grinds up before it gets to the actual plant. And then we get the fines out after that.
And then this one is an older plant, so it's not like you could just go and buy it off the shelf, correct?
Very specific.
Very specific. Thank you. Now, I know with Mr. Eisenbeis and Mr. Rasavi, they have reached out all over the state and probably other states, correct, Mr. Rasavi, trying to find a cheaper price and not the price that came out, but unfortunately we can't, and to stay in compliance, we have done an emergency purchase for $44,628 for the Oakland Park Head Works grinder to replace it so that we can keep the plant operational and not in violation. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board. We had to wait till this morning when Vita got back at her crew to approve it finally. So I just wanted to bring this back to everyone so they knew about it. Next up, we have our second, go ahead, Mr.
Who approved it?
I approved it. It's under the amount, correct? It's an emergency purchase order because their plant was, am I correctly, was in struggling, correct? Any other questions, Mr. Collins, on that? We got to go make sure that our plant stays in compliance.
The report from DEQ identified when there's mechanical failures and so forth, we're obligated to replace those. And what you had in this situation, this is kind of a critical piece of equipment, and it eliminates, as John pointed out, a lot of the items that can be destructive to a wastewater treatment plant. And I believe the lead time is 14 to 16 weeks. So it's not something that's going to be done promptly, but we want to make sure that we're in compliance and cooperative as DEQ has identified during the several meetings we've had. And so that's why it's critical to have that piece of equipment.
Is there any other questions on that? I will move to the secondary public comment. And also too, lastly, next board meeting, 17th, I will be doing a yearly report and I'll try to have a PowerPoint for that and something to hand out. Next up is secondary public comment to address meeting business matters only. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly recorded and included in the public record. Does anybody like to speak that's in the audience? Ms. Lovell, you go right up.
I have a question. Well, my name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. And I think Mr. Strauss say somebody sent a letter to, I don't know if the whole county or just the people live around. I live in Hoover and Roosevelt. And they planning again, they do townhouses by the side. And I don't know how the traffic go in the handle. In 2019, they want to build by the Sheriff's Department 400 townhouses or whatever it was. Well, I stay until 2 o'clock in the morning because the traffic always been terrible. And I live right there in Hoover and Roosevelt. And sometimes when I get out, I had to go to the high school, turn around. And we didn't used to have so many lights. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 lights. You know, if you approve that, that will be more terrible traffic. The kids walking across from the high school to the sheets, they're walking all over the places. And I don't know if you invited to the meeting. The meeting is Thursday in the library. I don't know, are you going to ask to the people about this building? I would like to know that.
Thank you. And that was something for the Board of Supervisors, but I always like listen to your question. That is a good question. That is a question I'll have to answer offline. How's that? You're welcome. Is anybody else for the Service Authority? It's all good. It's all good. All right, anybody online? Does anybody get correspondence while we've been sitting up here? Is there somebody else who would like to? For the Service Authority. Was there anybody else, just to clarify, anybody in the audience who wanted to get up for the Service Authority? Okay. Nobody has any correspondence, right? That being said, oh, I did want to give one more update I did forget about. I've been working with Ms. Southall on creating the newsletter to go with the fog magnets that we have purchased to send out to all the Service Authority residents. Ms. Southwell has been working to try to come up with the newsletter so she can have the address, so it uses in the trifold to save some money, so the fog magnet will be wrapped up in the newsletter. We've also investigated on setting up an email chain so that we can do a quarterly newsletter to the Service Authority customers through digital means to save down on cost. So that is coming, and Ms. Southwell and I have been working on the newsletter. Hopefully it'll be done by the next meeting so that we can send out the magnets about the fog program and what not to put down your drain and to help our Service Authority out. So Mr. Davis, your newsletter is coming. It's in the works. So with that being said, do I have a motion for closed session? Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
Will you allow me to make a comment?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Collins.
So, Ms. Levy, will you talk about, and we've heard of this development behind sheets. Most of us are aware of the plans, but it doesn't mean anything. It hasn't come in front of this board for approval. It still has to go to the planning commission and then come to us. And there are a lot of impacts that we have to consider. So it's still in the infancy stages, and I think that's a public informational, but there's no decisions, and there won't be any decisions until it's rightfully in front of this board. Thank you.
All right. Would anybody like to make the motion for closed session?
I move that the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors convene to closed session pursuant to State Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, and evaluation of performance of departments or schools of public institutions of higher education where such evaluation will necessarily involve discussion of the performance of specific individuals. I invite the county administrator, senior assistant to the board of directors, and the interim county attorney as needed because they are deemed necessary and/or their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the topics to be discussed pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712F.
I have a second?
Ms. Bender, can I make an amendment
Go ahead.
to remove public institution of higher learning education?
Wanted to clarify, Mr. Stewart, is that okay? Yep. Can make that amendment. All right? Yep. So do I have a second? That amendment? We'll have a second. Motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are in closed session.
Don't go away, we'll be right back.
everybody ready? All right, we're ready. We have to do first the motion coming back from closed session. So would somebody like to give that motion?
Move that the King George County Board of Directors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed board or closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting, and no action was taken on matters discussed in closed session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion properly second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, no, you have to certify, sorry. By certify.
Certify. Certify.
Certify.
So certify.
So certify. We are back in open session. Mr. Sullins, you have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to move that Mr. Rosapi, as a compliance officer, shall provide directives to Emboden and the Service Authority staff as necessary to be in compliance with all consent decrees with DEQ.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion that the Board of Directors adjourn to Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. the boardroom, Rivercombe Building.
Do I have a second? A motion properly second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The Service Authority Board of Directors meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.
Alrighty, back to the Board of Supervisors, action item 1203, proposed vision and mission statement, Mr. Stroud.
Yes, sir. I would like to have a vote on the vision and mission statement to be passed.
So, you have a motion?
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the vision and mission statement as presented.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to discussion. I did send some suggestions to the vision and mission statement. I would like to have them on the public record, and to also clarify again the vision and mission statement to be for the Board of Supervisors and not just for inclusion in the comp plan, that it be the Board of Supervisors, what they would look as their mission and vision to be a full overall county one to be worked on in a public process. So my suggestions for the vision statement was a little tweak to promote the general welfare by maintaining a rural county where all can enjoy freedom and prosperity with limited government intrusion. One of the suggestions for the mission statement was to add to decrease the tax burden on the citizens to the end of the statement. For number 2, to add optimize and plan county infrastructure into that point. Number 3, to enhance the economic vitality of King George by promoting and attracting businesses in appropriate zones. And then no suggestions on number 4, and then to add a number 5, protect and preserve our natural resources and unique history. Thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. Alrighty, thank you. Next one is discussion items 1204, Dahlgren Parks Master Plan, Mr. Smolnick and Ms. Kim Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Cook, if you want me to, I can talk about it if you want to, or do you? In January of 2020, the county acquired an additional 166 acres at the foot of the 301 bridge. This is in addition to the property that we already had out there. July 11th, 2023, the Board of Supervisors approved $100,000 for a master plan of the Barnes Field and Wayside Parks. The county put out an RFP. We received 8 proposals this past summer, and the county interviewed 4 firms. Of those 4 firms that were interviewed, McGill Associates PA was selected as the most qualified firm, and the county worked with them on a cost proposal. They came in at $93,300, which is within scope of the amount approved by the through the CIP. So the requested or recommended action is to authorize the county administrator to execute a professional services agreement with McGill Associates for the master plan for the Dahlgren area parklands in the amount of $93,300, subject to approval as deformed by the interim county attorney. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Smolnik?
I do have a question, Mr. Collins.
Yep.
Concerning one of the parts with they talked about the wetlands, are they going to actually walk the property or is this a GIS? Because I know that property, especially when it was turned, one of the challenges with it, why we've got so much acreage, is it does has a lot of wetlands that might not be seen from the air.
So according to the scope of services, task one, stream and wetland delineation, a JD project will be completed. So they will do an official JD of the area.
So that will be walking it, not just an aerial. That's where I was trying to clarify. Because if it does have a lot of wetlands, I want to make sure that it's done properly.
Any jurisdictional areas found on the property will be flagged and located with a global positioning system accuracy in the field. So, I don't know if you can GPS via drones or not. I'm sure you can. I'm not sure. I did not sit on the particular interviews if this particular question came up, and I'm not sure if Ms. Cook, knows the answer to that either. We could make it a requirement that it is field walked, on foot, and make that a requirement.
I would like that because I do know there is a lot of wetlands might not be. It's sort of like the middle school property.
What was the last sentence in that statement? The GIS.
Any jurisdictional areas found on the property will be flagged and located with global positioning system accuracy in the field.
In the field. 5 foot. Field. Can't just use GPS. It says in field, so you have to have something that's going to.
Mr. Collins? I know with words too, I want to just make sure, but one other, heard the history of that area numerous times from Elizabeth Lee and Jean Graham. Is there a provision in there for the historic resources? Because I know there was the hose ferry that comes through that area. Because there could be historical artifacts that maybe they could be identified. And from my knowledge also of seeing when they dug for archaeological dig before the bridge, there was several Indian tribes that had camps in that area.
Good question. Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Smartick, the study that we're doing on this, is it to see what the best use of the property is going to be, or do we have suggestions for that as well?
So again, the master plan will, of course, after you do all the site evaluations, that will determine how much the land is feasible, and then you would indicate, or is this an expansion of the ball fields? Is this passive recreation, active recreation? So the end product should be a plan to come in that says, so we can include on our capital improvement plan to say the wayside and the 2 parks here, we've got 4 more. Don't quote me to anything, but we've got 6 more ball fields, 3 hiking trails, and XYZ that could be planned here. Then we would cost estimate that and include it in a future CIP for the board's consideration.
Or if it could hold a structure of some sort.
Oh, what?
Structure.
The geotech borings, I don't, again, not being part of this, I did not see that as part of their requirements. That would take some geotech work. It's, if the county wanted to do that, that's something that we could undertake or include in a future CIP project. It's not going to be that expensive.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So on that, the GPS locating, they they say in their letter, they specifically stated that it is not a survey. So it's not to the detail where they're gonna mark the property boundaries. So, but whenever you go online, you can pull what the wetland designated areas are, so you know where you cannot and where you're limited what you can do in there. And I think that that gives them enough of an area, because they mentioned that they're gonna do it within the permitting and so forth. So it's a plan. And I guess any further details would have to come out as part of that process.
So to include these items, to rewrite the, proposal, or what?
I just have one more question, Mr. Chair. This is clarification too for the public, Mr. Smolik. This has nothing to do with the house that we own on that road, correct? This is just for the 166 acres?
There's three, what is it, three?
Because there is some misconception out there that this might encompass the house, so I want to clarify.
No, I do not believe this includes the house. This is the raw land. And Mr. Stewart pointed out there's a statement here where there is a kickoff meeting, very similar to when we had the fire station, to identify the scope and what we're looking for. Any of these refinements, we can take care of that between the county and McGill staff to review and refine the proposed scope of services. So at that scoping meeting, some of the concerns that you're requesting, the field verified on foot delineation. We can ask about the geotech borings, Mr. Davis. But this is just to get them under contract and to work with them. We can further refine this at the initial meeting.
I would like to add the historic resources onto that.
Okay.
Alrighty, thank you. Alrighty, Mr. Smolik, County Administrator's report, legislative update.
Absolutely. I think we're gonna pull this up. So I had requested that the board consider putting together a formal legislative agenda prior to the General Assembly convening in early January. So I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for sending me a myriad of suggestions. And what I've done is I've gone through them. There were some duplicate efforts. Some of the board members are thinking the same things, and hearing from your constituents what's important to them. So the goal of this is I've compiled them, refined them, and just tried to put them in as clear terms as possible under specific categories. Now my goal here would be to, this is a discussion item. I'd like to have a discussion with the board, and then feel free to edit, omit, add anything that we have on this list. And the goal would be to bring an official resolution back to the board on December 17th for adoption, so that our state legislators have something definitive from our Board of Supervisors. So the first one, and really, water and conservation. I think this one came up time and time again from the board members. We're east of 95, so we know we need to get off of groundwater. So I think the biggest one was request funding for those localities east of I-95 who need to go to surface water. Very, very clear and concise. The second one requests that DEQ think holistically about the process and timeline for obtaining surface water withdrawal permits. And here's the big thing, and prioritize water for human consumption over the need of industries like data centers and paper mills. Or paper mills, there's a couple of them in this general area. One of them down the closest one in West Point use a absorbent amount of water. But and I think this board has made some statements of making sure we have enough water for our citizens. So that's why the second bullet point is here. And the third and final bullet point under water and conservation, identify some key properties in and around Caledon Park and really throughout the entire county that may be considered for conservation measures and those funding mechanisms that are available to King George County. Part of the strategic or the vision mission statement was to preserve the rural character. Are there ways to do this and add to that land that will be forever preserved throughout King George County? So moving on to transportation, this was another kind of I got a lot of feedback from the board members here. And the first one that redrafted or combined was just requiring we're working with VDOT to include us in conversations of promoting 301 as an alternative to I-95. I know in the last couple of years, this has really, been a big push for VDOT to keep people, skirting the Fredericksburg, DC area. But what that leads to is a lot of congestion, accidents, and safety issues here for our citizens and our residents and people who work here. And so, and then the question that comes out of this are, what are the options available to address congestion on 301 to discourage through traffic? The second bullet point, continue to support smaller localities such as King George, who don't want to be a part of a regional transportation authority. There's really the premise of this is the citizens, of this and the taxpayers of King George should not be funding something where we don't have a vote. If we're going to be a contributing member, then we want to have a vote and a say in how that money gets spent and make sure that if there are funds going to transportation projects, they stay here in the county rather than going elsewhere. And then the third and final bullet point on transportation is give the localities additional authority on VDOT land use regulations where implementation of statewide regulations may not coincide with the needs of the locality. This one, VDOT's got their regulations and, obviously they are statewide and it's kind of like a zoning ordinance. Not every situation fits that code, to a T. So, is there some way that, localities can have more of a decision on what occurs in VDOT right away and some of the traffic improvements that they'd like to make to keep traffic moving? The next bullet point, school construction. This one's pretty straightforward. Implement the recommendations of the JLARC study on K-12 funding mechanisms to assist with school construction efforts. The next topic, economic development. Consider the impact of state mandates, especially incentive package for ED projects that are decided on at the state level with provisions for localities to match or absorb the financial policies or the financial costs, and to see if we can remove any special protections exclusive to large tech companies. And then next grouping down is really a land use category. Allow local and government bodies to retain the ability to review and determine whether or not solar energy generation facilities can be located or constructed in their respective locality. Last year at the General Assembly, this gained some traction, and we've had some discussions, and we understand it's going to be coming back up, where it could take the rights away from a local county board of supervisors to have any decision on solar farms. So you guys want to keep that ability to make those decisions on your own for King George County. And then the last one was just I had 4 miscellaneous bullet points. First one, make Virginia a constitutional carry state. I believe there are 29 states in the United States that are constitutional carry. Recommendation to add Virginia to that list. Keep Virginia a right to work state, which is critical for, as we're recruiting economic development projects. This is a huge thing that the state pushes whenever we're competing with, the Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. We are a right to work state. And then next bullet point, remove the state limitation on the board of supervisors' ability to meet. This is just for the public. Anytime you have 3 or more board members getting together, we have to advertise for it. And they cannot communicate with more than 3 over email. So these are regulations that are pushed down from the state to all localities. So this is on the list to take a look at this. And the last one is revisit the requirements that states place on localities to be eligible for state grants. Median income should not be a deciding factor for those localities that have unique demographics and needs. So with King George County, we have a very high household median income, which kicks us out of a lot of grant opportunities here. There's a with Dahlgren, 10,000 people a day coming here, high earning, individuals, and that kicks it up, which kicks King George out of a lot of opportunities. So, are there opportunities for grants to look at, or maybe not place such an emphasis on median income? So board, this is the list of, and I believe I've captured everybody's thoughts. If I haven't, please let me know. But, so open the floor for discussion. Do you like them all? I mean, it's quite a list. Do you want to refine, keep them all? I'm willing to do what you want to include into a resolution at the next meeting.
What's the will of the board? I'd like to keep them all.
I just wanted to add to one on the school one. The JLARC study wasn't just about school construction. It's also about the school funding and the state to look at how they fund the schools so that they can kick in more money to the localities than the localities actually pay out.
So you're speaking of the SOQs?
Yes. And there was recommendations, overhaul, looking at the tax structure of the state of Virginia and also the state mandates for positions, and it's all in that JLARC study. So however we can word that, besides just the construction.
Okay.
Anybody else? Seems to be a consensus that we're good with all these. Basically, we want to keep the rights of the county to be decided upon the county and not have the state control us.
Thank you, sir, for the effort and putting it together. Thank you.
Absolutely. You guys did all the work, so I think this is a good thing to memorialize and put in a resolution to push forward to the General Assembly. So thank you.
So you'll send these to our representatives?
Yes, I'll include these on the December 17th in the form of an official resolution that we can adopt at that meeting with recommended changes.
King George County seal and not King George VA?
Sure, absolutely.
Document?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Alrighty. Next, you speak a little bit, Mr. Smolnick, about the county workload updates.
Sure. So the county workload updates. This is a document that is. I can talk. We got the climate study. Do you want me to go to that first, or
just do the work?
Okay. Okay. So the workload. This is something that the board requested, and this is a public-facing document. This is a working document. This is really to show to citizens of what we are working on here at the county, broken down by specific department and then individuals. So it's quite an extensive list, but you'll see the first column's a project in the category, project status of where we're at and which specific county employee it is assigned to, and then if there's any specific notes on it. And we will update this every couple of weeks just to keep the public, again, this board is really about transparency and from the taxpayer standpoint, what is my staff doing with your tax dollars? So if you look at this list, again, this is linked on the agenda. Anybody can see it. And if they have any questions, you know who to contact at the county. I'm looking here. I see Kelly Leduc here in the Community Development Department. A lot of applications. There's going to be a lot of public hearing applications coming up. So if somebody has a question on, I'm just saying that I'm looking at the Gibson Solar Special Exception. They can go to this document, just get a little bit about it and who to contact here at the county. So, board members, if there's anything else you'd like to see added to this, I think I first presented this 2 weeks ago. I've worked with some additional departments, made more of a robust list. If there's anything that you'd like to see added, please let me know. And again, at the public, you can call the county, but this gives them some direction on where to go to for specific projects, initiatives, or whatnot in the county.
All right, thank you, sir. Next thing is the climate study.
Yes, sir. So I was requested to reach out to the Weldon Cooper Center, Virginia Institute of Government, to inquire about the possibility of doing a climate study for fire rescue and emergency services here in King George County. Charles Hartgrove, I had a conversation with him, and we had they've got some individuals up at VIG who specialize in this. Dan Eggleston and Brooke Kensington up at VIG. These are the two individuals who I met with via Zoom to talk about the parameters of what a climate study could look like. So I said, what I need now is a proposal. That proposal was sent to the Board of Supervisors and included in this packet. So you've got a proposal in front of you, Board of Supervisors, from the Weldon Cooper Center. Really, what they're going to do here, it's a brief narrative and approach to providing the required services. They're going to look at the following tasks: conduct an introductory meeting to establish project goals, expectations, timelines with key stakeholders with county administration, and then they'll develop a survey to address key issues such as role clarity, leadership support, job satisfaction, review and refine draft survey with the county administrator, distribute survey, monitor responses, analyze, collect data, and then conduct a couple in-person focus groups to further explore key findings and themes from the survey, and then review and refine, and then present the findings and recommendations of the survey with the focus groups in person to the Board of Supervisors. in coordination with my office. So the proposal that you all received is from Virginia Institute of Government at Weldon Cooper Center with a proposed fee structure of $12,000. I talked to Mr. Hartgrove. I said, send this to me and I'll get it on my next board's agenda, which I've done. And I open it up for the board if you have any questions for me of how this could look, or maybe the outcome of the study.
Already, my only comment is that this be conducted, any in person, be conducted without any recordings. So that means that that no recording can be done by anyone. By audio recording, not written.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Is your goal there to try to preserve a context of non-attribution?
Do it again.
You want to try to make it so that somebody can't go back and listen to that and attribute it to an individual and come after them, so to speak, later?
Yes.
All right.
Already, it'll be on the next agenda. Next thing will be the secondary public comment.
I have a question for Mr. Smolnick.
Go ahead, sir.
So just, this is your talk time. So something that we brought up several months ago was just a state of the county address. State of the county, is there any plan to get that done before the end of the year? Just something to talk about the things that have happened, whether you need to get with Mr. Sabi and whoever and us, and just from January, what is accomplished for this year, sir?
Yeah, I'm working on that. I'll have something at the December 17th meeting.
Thank you.
So just to readdress that, Mr. Davis, so we'll be going in closed session shortly to discuss specific personnel. And I think that a lot of that will come out, and then there'll be a directive from that. Mr. Stroud, you had something?
So this study is for what? Is it for all the employees in the county?
Just fire, rescue, emergency services personnel.
So why are we selecting just that segment?
I was instructed to. I was requested, to get a proposal for this particular department.
Who requested that, sir?
All of us. We voted on it. And the reason is because of the high turnover rate. So we're trying to figure out what's going on with the climate, things that can be done better.
I'll have to go back and look. I don't remember voting on that because I don't remember voting on it. And I don't know why we'd select just one segment of the county to do that. And there's
The discussion was at the time that we voted on it was that we get a large turnover from the fire and rescue like no other department, including the sheriff's office or any other county department. So this will help drill down in some things. So Mr. Smolnick can.
I think we get a high turnover from the school too, don't we?
Well, we're not on the school board. We don't have anything to do with that. They can do their own climate study if they want.
Well, my point is that it's not just the fire department. And so I don't know if it's external factors or not, but there are ways of doing that because we're asking to spend, what is it, $12,000? Because climate studies are done in the commercial sector internally. There's actually free mechanisms for doing that where you could do a climate study that Mr. Smolnick could do that wouldn't cost our taxpayers money.
My argument would be that Mr. Smolnick does not have time to do a climate study with all the responsibilities he has. And two, I think that $12,000 is pretty cheap compared to the amount of turnover and training for each time that someone gets turned over. If you did that once, you would pay for the climate study.
Mr. Chair.
If Mr. Smolnick needs help, I can help with it.
Yes, sir.
Can we quantify high turnover rate? I know you say compared to the other departments, but how does it compare to other fire departments of similar size in the local area?
I think they can do that in the study. They can quantify that.
I think that definitely is an area we can go at for free, but, reach out to our counterparts and.
So I do not want, I'm gonna tell you this, I do not want our inside people asking questions to our inside people. So it needs to be completely outside of this county so they can get true answers to the things that exist. So if you put Mr. Smolnick in charge of it, they're gonna tell Mr. Smolnick what they think that Mr. Smolnick wants to hear.
I'm just talking numbers here. I'm saying somebody can call down to the fire department in Caroline County and ask them what their turnover rate is. Somebody can reach out to Stafford, somebody can reach out to Spotsy. Probably Caroline will be a little bit closer in size of what we've got. But when we say we've got a huge turnover rate, but we compare it to other departments, that's apples and oranges. It's a very dangerous, high demanding job. So maybe they're just going to finding another thing to do.
So
Additionally,
I brought this to you all, and the reasons I brought this to you was very specific reasons. So there's a high turnover rate. The exiting people are not leaving because of money; they're leaving because of climate. And so I have personally called these people and recorded their statements if they're leaving for money or another reason. So we needed somebody independent besides us five, Mr. Smolnick or anybody in the county, to conduct what's a real study on the climate and to able to give us an opportunity to fix the climate.
so if you've collected all this information, could you make it available to the rest of us?
No, I will not.
Then I surely can't support it.
Okay, well, it's not up for a vote. So I talked to these people in confidence, and I record them so that I could make sure that nobody could change their tune when if it was necessary to do something else. But no, I'm not going to provide my recorded conversations with departed members of the fire department.
Mr. Collins, can I just bring it? I'm concerned about the 12,000, but I also, just a little added information. My brother-in-law is a professional firefighter in the state of Massachusetts, and he's actually trains at the Fire Academy in Massachusetts. We had a great Thanksgiving discussion about they have the same challenges in their fire department, being able to retain employees. A lot of young folks don't get into the profession anymore. There's a lot of factors. It was actually an interesting discussion. So it's in other states too, this problem of high turnover in fire and rescue and EMS. Just bringing it out there.
Already? Secondary public comment?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just had two more quick items.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So, again, a new form that you all have every board packet is the vacancies. I know we had one appointment tonight for the Planning Commission. Please take a look at this. There are several vacancies that were appointments that will be coming up at the end of the year. I know, Mr. Stroud, I saw the email. You did appoint somebody last time, so I saw that email to Lucy. One thing I did want to note out is the Tourism Advisory Committee. That entire committee is up for reappointment. Their term ends December 31st of this year, and then there is a current vacancy for lodging. So there are a number of appointments that are going to end here in the next couple of weeks. I ask that you consider this, talk to your constituents if you have anybody make those appointments, or we can do them at the next meeting.
Can I make a recommend somebody for an appointment now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I would like to recommend Mr. Bob Baird for the Technical Advisory Committee vacancy.
For the same category, culture and history?
Under the Director of Economic Development.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yep.
For a second.
Wait a minute, which one was, I just want to clarify. Gotcha. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. You have an appointment, Ms. Bender?
Yes, I do. I would like to reappoint Mr. Ed Frank to the Social Services Board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I just want to ask, we'll clarify.
Aye.
Just want to clarify, we also need for the tourism committee agro-tourism, correct? Because the person is no longer going to be living in King George, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Any other appointments?
And then one last thing, Mr. Chairman, and for the public, Sunday, December 8th from 4 to 6, we have our Christmas tree lighting out here on the lawn of the courthouse. There'll be some activities. Some of the choirs from our local schools will be here. So I encourage the public to come on out to this. You know, what I hear is a wonderful event. I will be there with my family. So Sunday, December 8th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. here at the courthouse complex.
Ready? All right, for the third time, secondary public comment to address business meeting. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly included. Anybody would like to make public comment?
Hello, guys. My name's Julianne. I live in the Dahlgren district. Couple things. When you guys are doing the Wayside Park, please remember that a lot of us like the water usage over there. So if you guys can keep that like it was, it would be awesome. Like a park where we can go to the water. So my main reason is I am concerned with the development behind the sheets. They're clearing land right now. I called and talked to Rick with the building department, and he has told me that nothing has changed in the planning. So I wanted to call your attention, and I remember talking to Soli about this previously, that it is currently zoned for a nursing home. So I'd like to make sure that that is not kept. Zoning for a nursing home is a lot different than zoning for a drug rehab, and it's going to cause repercussions in the future. And again, I'd like to make sure and maintain all of the safety for the King George residents, trying to force them to put a fence up. I'd like you guys to try to force them not to build it. You guys know everything else that I've said for the last year and a half. So thank you very much.
So, Mr. Smolnik, you look into that and see if, and could you get back to her, please?
It's actually called Pyramid Healthcare. And I'm trying to say, I've known a lot of people who have wanted to buy houses in the area and have not come in here because of that. In fact, I wanted to sell my house and move, and I really can't do that either. So I'm stuck there. Recently I've put up security around the perimeter of my house, including my backyard, and installed a 6-foot fence to maintain my safety. I believe in my constitutional rights as well, so I have that. But I'm concerned with the safety of my neighbors in my neighborhood and the overall safety of King George with that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And just we have another closed session, but just see me before that. I'll make sure you have all my information, and you and I'll touch base.
All right. Is there anyone else for public comment? Is there anyone online? All righty.
You have your hand raised to speak online here.
Yep. Ryan McGill, Shiloh District. Speaking on the cultural assessment study of the fire and rescue department, I find it concerning also, as one of the Board of Supervisors stated, that this is only examining the fire and rescue department and not the general county as a whole or other agencies that may have recruitment and retention problems. It's odd that we say that we have a retention problem, but we can't quantify that or even know for sure. And it's concerning that a member of this board has recorded conversations with former employees, but they don't want a research team from an academic institution to be able to use recordings to help develop their reports. Speaking to what Ms. Bender said regarding or brother or brother-in-law, I'm sorry, I missed that. As a industry, the fire service is facing this around the nation. I can tell you firsthand where I work as a firefighter paramedic that the numbers that we have leaving monthly from our organization are enough over a year to probably equal the entire King George Fire and Rescue Department because of the generational differences that we are seeing in our workforce. It's very important that this board understands that this is not something that is just happening in King George County. Thank you for your time.
So I didn't get to, I couldn't hear the name.
Shiloh.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else? Is there anything online? I mean, anybody get any comments already? I'll close public comment. Closed session.
I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors convene to close session pursuant to State Code Section 2.23711A1 for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, and evaluation of performance of departments or schools of public institutions of higher education, where such evaluation will necessarily involve discussion of the performance of specific individuals. I invite the county administrator and the interim county attorney as needed because they are deemed necessary and/or their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the topics to be discussed pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23712F.
I make an amendment to remove the public institution of higher education.
Yes.
Probably second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We are now in closed meeting. Alrighty. Is there a motion to come back from motion, closed meeting?
I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting and no action was taken on matters discussed in closed session.
Certification?
So certified.
So certified.
So certify.
All right, and we are now in open session.
I move that we adjourn.
Till
I move to adjourn to Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom of the River Calm Building.
Second.
properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for